Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Prez, and this is episode 464. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Prez. That is at _Presidente on Twitter and at Presidente on Blue Sky. Prez, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Weird schedule for the Knicks this week. Looking forward to the matinee tomorrow.
It's not a matinee.
It's not. I thought it was at 1:00.
That's at 8:30, but yeah.
Oh,
Tough.
well, I guess that's a good thing. I'm
I don't
very
know,
on
you tell
top
me
of
you're
it
gonna
this week.
you're gonna be awake at 8:30, you think?
TBD.
All right. We're going to talk about the Knicks. We'll talk about a lot of things about basketball because it's a very eventful week around the league. But before we do that, I do have to make a few announcements. First being that Strickland has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are and not done so already, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.strick.land. There's a link that'll take you to the merchandise store, and there's all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we've got it. The Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland's podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozos, a podcast hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, along with Zach Blatter. And you get access to the Strickland Discord. The conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant over the Knicks even more. You also get access to one of my articles by Matthew Marino, one of the best in the business. And you get access to Strictly NFL, which you guessed it is a podcast about the NFL that is hosted by Konstantin Mechkos and Desmond Novak. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. This comes with a variety of additional benefits, like listening in on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours. Truly, one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not, none of this is possible without you, and none of this would be possible without Bet Online. The biggest betting weekend of the year is finally here, which means more updated odds and props for Super Sunday. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. We have hundreds of prop bets, MVP odds, and exclusive in-game live betting. BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline offers you everything and more to enhance your game day experience. Visit the website today and make the game day action count a little bit more. BetOnline, the game starts here. Prez, you're pumped for the Super Bowl, I'm assuming?
Yeah, obviously every year circle this date on my calendar to watch the culmination of my favorite sport on earth.
Oh, yeah. It is your favorite sport.
Here are my Super Bowl thoughts. I hope the Eagles lose. I don't want any good things for the city of Philadelphia. The end.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I will be rooting for the Eagles because I have an agenda at hand.
Pro Joel Embiid Shwin is all I heard.
Yes, that's it. You heard it here first. Big Joel Embiid guy. All right. Well, the Knicks, they've won 2 in a row, and to your point, very weird week where they play a back-to-back on Monday, Tuesday, and then no games for 3 days, and then we play Saturday. So odd, whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, they beat Houston on Monday, and then they beat the Raptors on Tuesday, and then they traded Jericho Sims on Thursday.
We're going to spend the next 45 minutes reminiscing about the highs of my dear Jericho Sims. Just kidding. We're not. He served his purpose. His purpose, listener, you may be wondering, make Prez look good in his draft prognostications. I had him as slightly not shitty, and that is exactly what he was for his time here. Thank you for your service, Jericho Sims.
Yeah. I mentioned that, yeah, Jericho Sims was fine. Look, he was 58th pick. He played for the Knicks for, what was it, 4 years? Is it 4 years? Yeah, 3.5 years. Basically 3.5 years. And he was worth the 50th pick and then some. I mean, generally the fact that a guy is even rostered for that long, drafted in that position, and then traded out for, I mean, I guess you could say value. I mean, maybe not in the sense of
value.
Yeah, like not in
Not
the sense
immense
of you got
value.
yeah, like not in the sense that the Knicks got some amazing piece to get back Delon Wright, but the fact that they did get $2 million in cash in this trade kind of tells you that. I mean, look, not that I care. It's not my money. I don't give a fuck what the bottom line is for the Knicks. But you know what? It is a victory as far as James Dolan will see it, and there is value to that. So, yeah, look, I mean, again, he gets traded out for Delon Wright in basically a 1-for-1 swap. Not basically, it is a 1-for-1 swap. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any like I don't think there needs to be much said about Jericho Sims. He was a fine player given the resources that were used to draft him and then keep him. I don't think anybody is under the illusion that the Knicks are going to severely miss him. I also don't think like I understand, and I'm obviously I was and we were critical of Jericho Sims while he was on the team when he played because he was not a particularly good player. But you know, in the grand scheme of things and what he provided and what he did for the team, I think you just have to say thank you for your services and best of luck. I that's it. I mean, and honestly, like I understand why there has been a lot of conversation and debate over like I mean, the most annoying thing about the trade deadline is like because the Knicks made their big moves in the offseason, people are like, "Oh, I can't believe the Knicks didn't do anything. I can't believe." Like, I mean, I don't know what there was to do. They didn't have much they could do, given their resources, and the things that they could have done potentially probably were not significant needle movers. Like I think it's easy to look at Cleveland and be like, "Oh my god, they did such a good job of getting DeAndre Hunter," and they did, but like they had more to play with because they have now moved 2 years after trading out the farm for Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks just traded out the farm this offseason for Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns. And, you know, I understand why there are people that are like, oh, I can't, like, I saw it a lot this week where it's like, oh my God, we can't trade for this player or that player or this guy or this thing because we gave up 5 picks for Mikal Bridges. And all I will say is this I think people continue to just not understand or not care to understand how much contracts matter in this current collective bargaining agreement that the NBA has entered into with the Players Association. Um, a significant reason why they were willing to give up the capital they did for Mikal Bridges is his contract, is the price, is his salary for the next this season and next season, and how flexible that makes them, what opportunities that gives them in terms of being able to execute trades, what exceptions they have, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's fine to not understand that, but it becomes annoying when you use that as a cudgel to beat the team with or beat the front office with or it's just dumb. And like if you want to live in some world where if we hadn't traded 5 picks for Mikal Bridges, we could have gotten Kevin Durant. Like, yeah, if you want to live in that dream world, that's fine. You're a fucking idiot, and you should shut the fuck up and never talk about basketball again. But that's fine, because there's no world where one the Knicks like the Suns are not going to trade Kevin Durant for picks that the Knicks have. It's not going to happen.
Also, guys, like I know it's been a weird season for Mikal Bridges, but like
he's good. He is
really
good.
hold on, let me I want to underscore it. Like he's shooting 70% at the rim, over 50% from mid range, and now he's up to 36% from three, and that includes like one of the worst shooting months of his career. He's also back to more consistently playing defense, and most importantly, he has played 51 out of 51 games. If you go on dunksandthrees.com, the EPM website, you know, people have different views on how useful EPM is, and I change my mind every day on it. One
I'm an
helpful thing they
EPM.
have on
I'm a
there,
defensive EPM. I'm a defensive EPM hater.
yeah, I think I'm joining. I'm at the informational session for the Defensive EPM Haters Club. I'm open to membership these days. One of the things on the website they have offensive EPM, defensive EPM, total EPM, and then they have estimated wins, which is basically EPM but adjusted for how much you play. And guess what? Guess what two players are both in the 92nd percentile in estimated wins, which again accounts for how much you play. Mikal Bridges and Kevin Durant. You know why? Because Kevin Durant, although he can shoot really well and create shots, and he's great at offense, predictably, he doesn't play all the games. So on the aggregate, for every 4 games, Kevin Durant helps you out a lot. There's 1 game where he does not play. And for Mikal Bridges, for every 4 games he plays, there's 0 games that he doesn't play. So it may not be as sexy, but the value that they got for Mikal Bridges is currently lining up to something worth quite a lot of picks, all things considered. So take that for data.
Yeah, I mean, forgetting, like, I don't even think you need the data to state this beyond reality. Like, the fact that Mikal Bridges, knock on wood, just plays every fucking game matters a lot. Like, I don't know, like, availability is the greatest ability, you know, all of that. Like, Kevin Durant misses, like, what, 20 fucking games every year minimum? Like, it's just, I know last year he didn't. Last year he had actually had one of his most durable years in the post Achilles era of his post Achilles injury era of his career. But yeah, Mikal Bridges just plays a lot of games, and he's good. Again, like, I don't know what else to say other than that. Like, I think it was an overpay. Like, I would not have done the Bridges trade. I've said this repeatedly. I would not have done it. I wouldn't have done it. Okay, not at that price. That's fine. Like, I understand why they did it. I think it's a reasonable, more than reasonable, move to make, given the value of his contract and what the Knicks needed and like all these things. Got off to a bad start. Got off to a bad start in New York. We know that. Like, his defense sucked for the first month and a half or whatever the hell it was. And, you know, for like until like after Thanksgiving, you're sitting there watching him on offense most nights and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is going on here? You just don't try shots at the rim. You're fading away on everything, and your 3-ball sucks ass. Like, I get it. The first impressions are often what we remember the most, right? Not, I mean, most of the time, that's what people remember the most. So I understand why there's still this idea of like, he's been this disaster acquisition or underwhelming or whatever. I challenge you to go back and watch games from the last couple months. Count how many games you think Mikal Bridges was not one of the Knicks' 3 best players on the floor. Just count them. Like, he's been consistently fucking good now for a long time.
And with Cat's scoring output decreasing and shooting output decreasing
and
since his injury,
bullshit and his defensive bullshit increasing.
With all of Cat's shit going the wrong directions, except for his rebounding, Mikal Bridges and OG also, like, in aggregate, has been like fairly inconsistent for about 2 months. Mikal's been reliable.
Could you argue? I mean, I don't know. I'm just gonna throw this out there. Would you say that Mikal has been better than OG this year? I would.
That's a tough one. I always go back and forth on sorting out ranking Mikal, OG, and Hart this year.
I think OG has like the highest highs. Like, his best game matters.
When he's just like exploding the other team completely. Yeah.
Like, it matters the most. Like, his best game matters the most of those 3. Josh Hart has like the loudest game in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know how to put this because I'm not calling Josh Hart an empty stats guy, but like, I think some of the box score numbers that he puts
Josh Hart's fuck ups don't show up in the box score. Just like a lot of his I mean, a lot of his greatness does show up in the box score, right? The rebounds, the assists. But like when Josh Hart fucks up, it's because he's like spacing off ball, like space cadetting off ball, and you don't know what the fuck he's doing.
And he has
and
like
he's going
weird,
for rebounds when he shouldn't, and shit like that.
And he also has like weird stuff offensively where he'll have like quarters and halves where he's like
shots he doesn't take.
Yeah, shots he doesn't
which
take,
doesn't show up in the box score.
And just also stuff like where it's like teams are treating him like a non-shooter, and it takes him like a half of basketball to adapt to that and like figure out how to be useful again. And you're like, why were you not setting screens for the first 2 quarters of this game? But like, whatever. I mean, this is a great problem to have, that we can have this conversation of like, which of our wings is the best. But I just think like Mikal has now, like after the first month, and look, the first month and a half was bad. We shit on him all the time during that, like on here, right? You were calling him cardio. So like, I'm not going to pretend that it's all been smooth sailing, but I do think for the last couple of months now, fairly consistently, you're talking about a guy who is playing good point of attack defense, who is efficient offensively, and is efficient offensively without getting plays run for him. Like he is giving you output without actually being a part of the kind of game plan in a lot of ways. And that's something that is true for OG and Josh Hart. OG maybe since he got out of his feelings, especially, and Josh Hart. Like these guys are not getting plays run for them, so they have to figure out how to play off of Brunson and Cat, and they've done that. And Mikal deserves a lot of credit for that, because that was a big adjustment for him. Like you've got to understand, this is a guy who for the last year and a half was basically the man in Brooklyn, and to go back, like again, like he was playing this role that he's playing now. He's playing this role in Phoenix. And then for the last 18 months, whatever, year and a half, he was doing something entirely different in Brooklyn. And then he comes to New York and it's like, okay, go back to the Phoenix thing. Go do that again. It takes time. It took him time. And
since December 1st, he's shooting 52% from the field, 39% from 3, 78 from the line.
How many free throws did he take in? Like 7?
Don't worry about that. His plus minus in that time is actually second highest on the Knicks. Cat 9.1 and Mikal 8.3.
His plus minus, as our good friend Clyde would say. Yeah, so I don't know. We weren't even supposed to talk about Mikal Bridges, but I got into a stupid argument on Twitter, which I need to do less of last night. And
so you decided the best course of action was, I'm going to take more time to extend this argument further.
Yep. Nice. As I've always said about myself, I'm very...
Once you spend more time arguing on social media, it's good for your health to continue in forums where no one can check you, like your own podcast. Great job.
Killing it.
The fuck were we talking about? Oh, you were talking about Kevin Durant for some reason, probably because you're a hater. What was before
that? I saw people bitching about like
the trade deadline. That's right.
Yeah.
And acquisitions and us doing our stuff pre-trade deadline. That's right.
But it's just stupid. Like it's like, look, the Knicks, I don't know. This has been what I've thought all year. Of like, the only thing they're gonna do is maybe move Mitch, and that became less and less likely when Mitch didn't play basketball, and it still has not played basketball yet. So, like, I don't know what people were expecting. I don't know if people like.
Here's my take on the deadline. I think people had low expectations, but like they wanted something that like intuitively was both new and made sense, right? So Delon Wright is not that, because most people don't know anything about Delon Wright, right? Like we were like, I'm sure you would have had people more, I promise you would have had more people pleased if the Knicks acquired PJ Tucker, who has played 0 games, simply because he's something that they understand and plays, even though he doesn't play, the position we're thin at on the bench. But because it's Delon Wright, which is like, what? Like, he's kind of old. In the past, he's been a point guard, I think, right? Like, what is that? What is that? That doesn't make sense. We didn't do anything. But like, you got to take, first of all, you got to take like 5 seconds to like just see what's up with Delon Wright and why they might acquire him, right? Like, is it a salary that's more useful than?
I mean, here's
That's
the
one
case.
reason.
Here's the case for Delon Wright. It's not complex and it's not sexy. It's not what people want. Obviously, like nobody.
What Prez wants.
Yeah, but nobody. It's not like we were sitting here last week. We're like, oh my god, if we could just get Delon Wright, like,
well, here's
holy
the thing.
shit.
Like, here's the thing, though.
But this is my point. Is like, so if you want the argument for Delon Wright, this is it. This is what it is. Okay, he's having the worst offensive season of his career right now. Is that a new reality for him, or is that the outlier? The second thing is this guy has like elite defensive metrics, and he's got good size on the perimeter, which the Knicks lack aside from their wings. And unfortunately, Landry Shamet has been awful. He has been bad. So given all of that, okay, Delon Wright, really good on defense. Offense has sucked. Is that what he is now, or is that outlier?
If you describe Delon Wright without putting his name on it, most Knicks fans would be like, "Oh, yeah, that makes more sense than Landry Shamet."
And you also like you got him for nothing. Is there a single Knicks fan that's like, "Oh my god, like can't believe we gave him Jericho Sims for this"? Like, no, because we all get it. Like Jericho Sims was nothing. He was a guy. He's a dude that you had that probably should have been like the 13th guy on the roster, but because of circumstances caused by trade and injuries, ended up playing some real minutes for the Knicks this year. Thankfully, that ended after a certain point in time. We could all move on with our lives. But yeah, like I just don't know what people are not. And I got to be fair here. Like I don't think I'm not. It's not like we're seeing a wide range of people bitching about like the Knicks inactivity or what they did do, right, and getting Delon Wright. But like Delon Wright, really good defensive metrics consistently over the course of his career, has good size, not a good shooter, and having the worst shooting and scoring season of his career currently. That's what you got for Jericho Sims, who I would say 99% of Knicks fans think is terrible. Like, yeah, you're not going to get some perfect piece. You're not going to make a great piece. But the Knicks did at least get a piece, a guy who has had some history of like productive NBA basketball. And that is, when you're bargain bin hunting, right? Like the Knicks are basically dumpster diving right now this season because of what they had to give up to get Mikal, to get Cat, and then how tight they are against the second apron. Like they are just trying to find whatever value wherever they can get it. So given those kind of circumstances, getting Delon Wright for Jericho Sims is not. I mean, it's like there's a world where this gives them value, and it gives them value in a way that Jericho Sims could not, and also didn't need to because we have Mitchell Robinson coming back. Cat exists. Precious is better than him. And Huck Porty looks like he might be better than him. I mean, our
this
guy.
Is the other point I wanted to make
Porty,
is like,
our guy, we did it. We made it happen. He's here, and he's better than Isaiah Hartenstein. How special is that?
Some say that he's the upgraded model of the German center who shamelessly betrayed us. Yeah. Benedict Arnold did us for money, for capitalism, for shame. No, but I do think that like, it's a little corny when teams are like, oh, like we got a player back from injury. That's our trade deadline acquisition. But it's true. Like the Knicks are a team. They're at a cruising altitude in terms of like they're pretty fucking good, but they're not completely set in stone. One, because of injuries, and two, because they're still experimenting a little bit, right? Like for a couple of weeks now, Brunson has been moving way more off ball than he did in the first 2 months. They have to change how they play now a little bit because of Cat's hand injury. We're now seeing no Precious at the 5, and we're seeing Precious with Cat at the 4, and Hukporty with Cat. Those are things that are new for this team. So we're like very much in the experimental phase on the margins, and part of that involves basically dusting off players who you haven't used, like Hukporty, and using players you have in different ways, like Precious. And that's basically like our trade deadline action is like, okay, we have new deployments that we're using. And, when you consider that we're like
Can
dumpster
I just
diving.
tell you something? Can I just tell you something hilarious?
Oh, God.
I just looked up Hukporty on Ducks and Threes. This doesn't matter because he's played like 7 minutes.
Is it going to be like first percentile?
He is literally in the first percentile.
on total EPM?
Yeah, total EPM, first percentile. He is first percentile in offensive EPM and 20th percentile defensive EPM. I don't think it doesn't matter. He's played unserious.
It's just funny.
Yeah, it's just funny.